Santa Clara County home sales top $14 billion. And luxury home sales legislation would ban hedge funds from buying houses. I think that's actually a good thing. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then there's never been a worse time to buy if you're a renter. Let's get going into this. A lot more to talk about than that, but here we go. Okay, so let's get started. Santa Clara County. No, we're going to do this one first. Legislation would ban hedge funds from housing market. Hedge funds have to sell off single-family homes that they own. Stiff tax penalties for hedge funds who fail to comply with the sell-off, and should companies be banned from buying homes? So we're kind of in a quandary, right? Because the American dream is to buy property, buy a house, live in it, pay it off. And then some people are using that as a business, as a side business, or even a full-time business. And where does a hedge fund differ from individual investors or a real estate investment trust or that kind of thing? So I think this thing is just, it's still a proposition. It's just legislation that's been presented to Congress. But what happens if this passes? That means there's going to be a glutton of properties in the market. That means we're going to have an oversupply with basic demand. Well, I understand that it's unfair, and I see both sides of this, right? We just have to be aware of what's going on. If this does happen, what's going to happen is that there'll be an oversupply of inventory. Buyers get to decide what kind of houses they will buy, and houses will sit on the market longer and prices will reduce, which it does make sense. I totally understand that. I don't have a problem with it at all because it frees up the inventory problem, which is keeping our prices unaffordably high. And a very small portion, I talked about it last week, a very small portion of people can actually afford to buy homes right now because interest rates are so high. Houses are very expensive, and this whole process would allow us to drop the values of home inventory, the home prices, which, I'm not going anywhere. It's okay. It doesn't matter to me. The only people now that would be hurt are people that are leaving a house for legacy in a trust or in probate, or if they're divorcing, or if they're getting relocated. Those are typically the people that I'm working with right now anyway, because the other part is a lot of these houses are being bought up for Airbnbs, so that's keeping people off the market, keeping rents artificially high. So that's the other thing too, is if this does happen and home prices do go down, rents will come down as well, because there's got to be a parity of making sense for, hey, you know what? You're charging me $4,500 on this house. I could just go buy a house for $3,500 a month and everything's equal, right? There's people that are lifetime homeowners that never want to get into it, but there's also people that have missed out on wanting to buy a house but could never afford it, or they just got outbid by 20 other offers, etc. So will this be a good thing? I think it'll be a good thing. It'll hurt homeowners' values, but I think they're artificially high anyway. I think it'll allow for more competition, and it'll really kind of take into attention home owners that aren't taking care of their houses, expecting their house to sell for what it did back in April, right? I mean, it's a good thing all the way around. Will it pass? Well, that's up to Congress and the divisiveness of what's going on right now. It really depends on a lot of things. I don't know if it'll happen. They just announced it, I think, on Friday. Did this happen on Friday? Yeah. So let's see what happens in 3 months. All right, next thing, title fraud. I keep talking about this. Guys, I've only had one person take me up on this. I promise you I'm not going to sell you anything. have your title looked at, or at least let me do a quick research on who owns your property. If it's you, great, no problem. If you have older parents, make sure that they're protected, okay? Make sure that their title is protected. You should do this every 6 months. But if you haven't seen this video, do so right now. And the link is down there and below. Okay, we'll go into that. There's never been a worse time to buy instead of rent. Well, right now, it absolutely is. That kind of goes into what's going on with this legislation that's trying to be passed. It's expensive to buy. Right now, there's no reason for you, if you're a renter, there's no reason for you to go out and buy a house. Typically, let's just say something in this area, you're paying about $4,500 to $6,000 a month for rent. If you bought a house right now on a standard conventional loan, 20% down, and whatever, you're going to be paying about 14 grand a month. So it doesn't make sense for renters to buy a house just yet here in this area, or even in San Mateo, or San Francisco, or Oakland, or wherever. It's unaffordable, and it kind of leads into this whole thing. Now, is this something that's going to change? Yeah, this will always change. We'll always see changes in the market. We're going to see highs and we're going to see lows. 2 years ago, we were at a firestorm. We saw the end of the firestorm, and we saw a little correction, and now we're coming back up again, and values are continuing to come up. So there you go. I think that's the whole thing. Okay, so will interest rates come down? Well, I think what we're going to see is interest rates are going to come down to maybe 5.5%, 6%. There's been a lot of news about that lately. I don't think we'll see low rates down to 0, 2.5% for a very long time. It could be, start of World War II or World War III. It could be a massive global economic catastrophe. It could be all sorts of stuff. So I don't know if that will happen, but in the near term, if rates get down to 5.5, we'll see the market pick up in demand. So I heard something where every time interest rates go down 1%, 8 million buyers enter the market. So if you buy now, not pitching you on anything, if you buy now at $1 million and then the rates go down 1%, your house will automatically jump in equity because more people mean more demand based on supply, unless we go into a glut of inventory, just like the legislature wants here. There's got to be a slow drip, kind of like what happened when Obama took over from Bush and we had 2008. We had a landslide, a gluttony of listings. We had a gluttony of supply, and it was impossible to close on a house because lenders were like, oh, we're caught, we're screwed, we don't know what to do. And people were very slowly buying houses, waiting for the banks to provide the loans, because back then you could just fog up a mirror and you would get a loan. After everything got slapped down and the market started turning, banks realized that they were in the wrong. So they started crossing their T's and dotting their I's and making sure that they were selling good loans back to the tertiary market. I don't know what's going to happen here. If they can trickle these houses in, maybe like 20% every quarter over so many years, then that would be great, because that would stabilize, keep the market stable. That makes sense. So 15%, I don't think we're going to see anything crazy like that. We did see prices go up to 8%, interest rates go up to 8%. When you look at all the history, that's not a bad thing. 1945, right after the war happened, kind of funny how that happened, we reduced rates because we had to make money cheap enough to get back from production for wartime materials to houses and financial and getting back to normal and all that other stuff. So interest rates were down to 1.7%. Here we saw 1.5%. It was actually free for a while. Okay, Santa Clara County is at $14 billion, but let's take a look real quick. Let's take a really quick look at 2022. We had almost 19 billion at the end of the year. So we still have 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're not going to get anywhere close to that, but we know that because we're still 25% down in volume. Even though prices are going up, we're still markedly under where we were on the average price in 2022. However, we're still a strong market because there's a lack of supply. See how it kind of just rolls in and rolls in? It all kind of ties together there, from hedge fund owners owning 40% of all the houses that were sold. What was it? In Phoenix, and 35% in Atlanta, and 24% nationwide. All those houses are going to come back on the market, meaning we're going to have to find buyers for that, which means affordability will have to come back to normal, which means rates are going to have to come down, and we'll see what happens. Now, again, this is just hedge funds. No, it's not just hedge funds. There's real estate investment trust. There's mom and pop. And I showed you a graph a couple days ago how mom and pop investors, which tie up most of the market, own 8 to 10 houses. So that's not just the answer, but it's got to be looked at a little bit more differently from smarter people than me. So we're still at $1 billion average over the 10 counties. And last week we sold 150 houses. Right now, this last week, we actually were 100 houses over for the 10 counties over the average closes, which is good. We still have demand. We still have a ton of demand. Houses are selling off the hook. The house that I have, I don't have it here listed. It's a fixer-upper. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, under 1,000 square feet, listed at $700,000. I have 3 offers on it already. I have investors calling me every day. I have agents calling me every day. There's 23 downloads. We had 20 people come through the open house, and I understand we're going to have another 2 or 3 offers come in. So yeah, demand is still there, even for fixer-uppers, turnkey. But pricing is important. You can't just go out there and mamby-pamby throw out a crazy number like it was back in 2022, because we have price reductions. Not every house sells right away, right? You can take Arabian. Now let's take a look at Cayuga. This house, I think we looked at that one. Let's take a look at Little Falls. This is it. Last thing, so stick with me, guys. This house was updated. I'm going to sneeze here. Crosses a park. Squeeze me. Very nicely updated. Pretty house. Has nice brown beige tones. Shows a little dark. Okay, enough of that. There's a nice picture. Nicely done. This looks like it was painted a taupe kind of color. Originally, that was probably a maple or a toffee color. So this house was either flipped or it was updated by an agent. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is a beautiful house in Almaden. It's right near Castillero. It's been on market 42 days, mostly because you had it listed way too high, right? Again, you're chasing the market. If you're, don't be a market maker, bring the market to you, right? And one of the ways to do it is keeping the house listed low. Buyers will tell you what the house is worth, right? And when you have multiple buyers, you control the tempo. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. On the last house I sold, we had 12 offers. We got 80,000 over more than what we expected. It's closing in a couple of days. And it's been a very, very smooth transaction outside of a house being, a vacuum being misplaced. So anyway, there you go. This is a great house. Today we talked about 14 billion in sales across the 10 counties. The local, it's never been a worse time for buyers to buy, and legislation will ban hedge funds from buying houses. I think that's a good thing. What do you think? Let me know. I'm Vito with Abitano. We'll see you out there.